Hi everyone, I'm Charlotte.
And I'm Gabi.
And this is Trunk Talk, the show where we talk about all things automotive. And we call it Trunk Talk because, of course, we're talking about all things automotive in the back of a trunk. So today we are in the 2024 Kia EV6, and this has a matte gray paint job. And that's a little bit interesting because what are we talking about today?
Today's topic is matte paint. And not only are we going to talk about what the paint is, we're going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, the pros, the cons, the do's, and of course,
the don'ts.
The don'ts. There's a lot of don'ts.
There's a lot of don'ts.
And I think, one, we should hop right into it.
Yeah.
Roll right into it. But first off, I kind of want to talk about what is matte paint, because a lot of people don't seem to realize that matte paint isn't a paint, it's a finish. So essentially, when you're painting a car, let's say on just a piece of steel, a piece of plastic, it has a dull, lackluster finish. And what really makes paint pop, whether it's matte or a gloss finish, is the coat, the clear coat. So on a majority of vehicles, like we have a Subaru out back right beside us, it's just a black shiny coat. That's what you're going to see in a lot of cars, for the majority of cars. And essentially, once that paint has been applied, it has a rough, uneven texture. And once you apply your clear coat, it's actually going to sink into those dips and divots that your first spray of paint offers or put on your vehicle and fills it to create a smooth, shiny finish. So that's what we see in a majority of vehicles. Now, matte paint takes it the other way. So we love those divots, we love those ridges, we love those dips. And the clear coat that matte vehicles are applied is a matte finish clear coat. Makes sense, right? And essentially, instead of filling those divots, it's going to fall into them and create even more. So the more dappled or dimpled the look of the paint, the less it reflects light, and then you don't have a shiny finish anymore.
And that's really what the matte finish is it diffuses light. It doesn't reflect it like what you typically see on vehicles or even think about in science class too, is it's not doing that typical refraction.
Even feeling them, so if you slide your hand across a glossy car, it's smooth, it's silky, unless it's really scratched up. If you do it to a matte paint, if you really feel it, you can kind of get a feel for those divots as well too. It's not feeling like it's bumpy or anything, but you can feel how it's different, that's for sure.
Meanwhile, I'm like sitting here and feeling the outside of the car.
If you guys are actually watching this podcast on YouTube, you can join us as we
stare at it and touch it.
And with that kind of history lesson on what matte paint is, I think we should get right into the pros,
the cons. But before we do that, I want to probe you guys with a question, because this is something Gabi and I talk about all the time, is when you are listening to this, keep in mind, would you get a car with matte paint, or have you had a car that's had matte paint? Matte paint, not bad paint.
And I will say, in the past, I remember when I was growing up, you would only see matte paint on supercars, and largely a lot of them were also wraps too. So not a lot of OEMs offered matte paint fresh off the factory, right?
That was probably for good reason.
Yeah, probably for good reason. Now you can actually get a Kia EV6 with matte paint. You could even do the Kia Sportage. A bunch of Genesis product comes with matte paint. So it's something that you can get from factory just in your regular SUV.
Which is really cool. It's cool to see it going that way.
I like to see some variation for sure. I want to start off with the pros and cons like I mentioned. So to start things off on a light note, let's talk about pros. Number one, it looks cool.
Absolutely.
It's different. You don't see them every day. You especially don't really see them on your everyday cars, but something about having a matte finish on like the EV6, for example, just gives it that very, it has an
elevated.
Edge. Yeah.
It's way more elevated. I think it looks way more luxurious. Like, it truly looks gorgeous to the eye, but also it photographs so nicely. So like seeing photos, you're like, oh my goodness. Like it looks great in contrast.
Yeah. And I mean, again, with that point, it stands out. So a matte paint finish car is always going to catch your eye first, and it's just because it's different, right? You're so used to seeing shiny.
What I was going to say, yeah.
It's very, very different, and they come in a bunch of cool colors. This is just a steel gray, for example, so it's nothing bright or funky, but you can really get matte paint in anything you want. Photographs well, so Charlotte made that point. Yeah, so since it doesn't reflect light, you're not going to see those swirls, paint swirls, and just general imperfections that you'll notice on a regular glossy paint car. So it does a good job of hiding that there. It also hides micro scratches pretty good too. So I don't know, if you are not the best at detailing your car, again, maybe matte paint's not for you, but scratches, things like that, the matte paint hides it very, very nicely. And you don't need to polish it. So there's a little bit of less work involved in that department, but let's talk about the cons now, because I'm about to
Is that a pro or a con? I can't tell.
I'm about to contradict almost everything I said. So it's easy to mess up. Essentially, matte paint, because it has that abrasive surface, so it doesn't reflect light, if you polish your car, you can't go in and buff paint if you get a scratch, because that is going to smooth out the finish, and that is not what you want on a matte car. That's going to make it shiny, and then of course the texture of the vehicle is going to appear uneven. You'll have some sections that are more matte than others, and it doesn't flow well. It doesn't make sense, right? Can't remove scratches. Polishing ruins the look. That's what I just said. And you need to use specialized products. So this vehicle, although we have everything we need for detailing, we do have to use specialty products for matte finishes. It's not the same as a regular car wash, and that leads me to another point in the fact that you can't take this to an automated car wash. And it's not just because it's a touch wash. So even if it's touchless, I do not recommend taking it. Kia doesn't recommend taking it. No one who offers matte paint recommends it. Because a lot of the soaps and just polishes they'll use in those automated car washes will contain glossifiers. I love
glossifiers.
Glossifiers. So you want to leave your car looking nice, shiny when you come to the car wash, right? With matte, it's the total opposite. So anything that has any sort of gloss, wax, or any sort of shiny bead into it is an absolute no-no for a matte paint. So I got that, and then also more expensive. I know for a Kia, it's a $3,000 upcharge to get the matte finish on the EV6, and for some people that just may not be worth it, considering that there is a lot more upkeep and some of those cons may just not outweigh the pros for you.
So not only is there that cost surcharge, but generally there's going to be another type of cost depending on what you're going to do or what you're willing to do to actually protect the paint and have it look good for like the full life of the vehicle too. So I guess that kind of leads into some of the do's and don'ts or your best practices. So the reality with a matte finish is that it's a specialty finish. It's going to require specialty care, specialty instructions, and I'll let you know what my hot take is on who should own matte paint vehicles at the end, but
can you guess?
Can you guess? So for some of the do's, there's a couple of them, but basically practice your preventative maintenance on the vehicle. So Gabi has said that matte paint, it can't be polished. And I feel like I'm really going to hammer that home. So you want to put down some type of paint protectant to prevent staining, etching, UV fading, or anything that we can get from the environmental concerns. Like you want to do the groundwork to protect it because it is expensive. It looks so good. Why would you pay that much and have such a good looking vehicle and not do something about it? I also think that matte paint probably isn't going to be for you if you really are conscious about the exterior of your vehicle. If you want it to look good all the time, this is going to be really difficult, in my opinion. But some of the other things that you can do if you do have a matte paint vehicle to keep it in good shape is regular hand washes. So that's, going to be the rinsing down. A lot of people are going to utilize like the 2-bucket method, which is exactly as what you think it is. It uses 2 buckets.
Wait. Can you explain that? No, I'm joking.
It has 2 buckets. Or also you can use like a handheld foamer just to make it look really good. And also when you're doing that, use a soap that is specialty formulated for a matte finish. That's going to tie into some of the other don'ts. And then also before you go in and do that hand wash or you're washing it, and it is recommended to hand wash it like nearly once a week. Depending on where you live, you can get away with doing it a little bit further. Like if you are in a place that's consistent weather, probably 2 to 3 weeks you can get away with. Here in Canada, you're going to have tons of salt, you're going to have snow, you're going to have debris building up. You're going to want to get rid of that pretty regularly, again, just in best practice for the finish.
Absolutely.
And you want to remove those contaminants. So like I said, environmental contaminants, things like bird droppings, sap if you get sap, insects. Bird droppings?
Seriously, a huge one. Yeah, and bugs, I would say. So I drive on the highway every day, and in the summer, my front grille is coated in bugs. And I don't really care because my car, I don't really care. But if I had a matte paint car, you got to take that off immediately.
Yeah.
And that would be an everyday thing for me.
So stuff like that bothers me on just my regular car that's not matte paint. And it's really just because they bake on, and anyone who's like washed their vehicle and taken it through a car wash knows that it can be difficult to get that stuff that's been on there for a while and that's been baking. Ooh. Now, this isn't environmental, but I think one of the worst things I ever saw is eggs. Somebody had their car egged, and it was left out in the sun because they didn't realize their car was egged. And who is like, oh, I better go check to see if my car was egged today,
Destroys your paint.
It just like ate through that coating. Yeah. And I felt so bad. It was a beautiful car too. It was a Stinger, so it was a lot of fun, but made me so sad. But yeah, those items that can bake on, they can cause damage to the protective coating and then ultimately the paint that's underneath. So what are some other do's? So use clean materials, like use clean mitts, use clean microfiber cloths. And if you haven't noticed, again, the idea of no polishing, using clean materials is something that is really consistent, like 2-bucket methods, clean water, clean towels,
soft materials.
soft materials like microfiber cloths. We're not using paper towel. I'm looking at you, Grandma. I'll talk about that a little bit later too, because it's funny. But you want to use materials that are clean, that are soft. That way, they're not causing any excess scratches or carrying contaminants across the vehicle as you're drying it or wiping it down. You don't want any of that happening. And then, of course, I'm sure this one comes as a big surprise, but you want to use items that are specifically formulated for matte clear coats or matte coatings. It's a specialty coating. You want to use specialty products. Again, I'm going to say that. And that's, again, just to keep it nice. Now, a lot of people think that you need to use some type of homemade concoction to get the right pH balance or anything along those lines. That's not necessarily true. There is stuff on the market that you can do, and you can ask your dealer on who you're getting this vehicle from. Of course, it may differ a little bit when it comes to a matte wrap or matte PPF, things along those lines, but I know Gabby's got some info on that.
Yeah, so PPF, I'm glad you mentioned it. PPF is paint protection film. It's something we do a lot on our cars. We typically do it on our demos as well too, because we know those cars can get, with driving and use, they'll get not beat up, but they'll experience the elements. So for someone, let's say a highway driver who experiences lots of bugs, maybe stone chips, any sort of sandblasting, PPF I strongly recommend. It's essentially almost like a sticker, a clear wrap on your car. A lot of people will do it on sensitive areas like your front bumper, your mirrors, or just above your windscreen. A lot of places where your car will pick up road hazards, I would say. Some people even wrap their entire car with PPF. You can't see it. The only time you can actually notice it is if you're looking at the body lines of your vehicle, because that's where the wrap will end, right? But it's not noticeable because it's completely clear. You can do this in a matte finish or a glossy finish. So if you have a regular paint car, don't worry, your car will still look the way it did from factory. It might even look a little bit shinier. And then with matte paint, of course, you'll have that matte wrap PPF. And that's essentially what it is. It's a wrap for your car, but it's a protective one. So think of it as a shield on your car. Yeah. And
it really does help. Like, that's actually what we have equipped on this vehicle. So it's ready to go for the elements that we face here in Canada. So let's talk about some of the don'ts then. This probably seems like it's a really negative episode and we're just like harping on matte paint. That's not the case.
But I do have to say, it is pretty negative because we're regular people. And this just doesn't make sense for us, and we want to share it with more people. You guys may be regular people, or you may be supercar owners and drivers and don't care because you're not cleaning it. That's fine. We'll get into that later.
So some of the don'ts, surprise, surprise, coming in at number 1 is no wax, no polishes, exactly like what Gabby said, is these alter the finish because they're designed to be that glossification, or what did you say? Did you say glossification?
Glossify.
Glossify. They're designed to glossify a glossy finish, which totally makes sense. So using products like that that are going to be more abrasive is they're going to cause shine spots on the vehicle. Shine spots are irreversible when it comes to matte paint, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to wreck the gorgeous paint job that you do have. But you know, if you take proper care and you follow the best practices, you're not really going to feel the need to utilize those products too, because you know you're taking care of your paint job, everything like that. No polishers or buffing like machines. I almost said muffs. That's sometimes what I call them, but I know that's kind of weird. And again, that's just because they're more abrasive. They can cause damage to the finish. I feel like I'm whipping through these don'ts. And obviously you don't want to use products that are designed for glossy finishes. So regular soaps, they can contain waxes, silicones, and optical brighteners that are designed, again, specifically for glossy finishes and to enhance the surface look, make it more glossy, like what Gabby said when it comes to PPF or when you leave the car wash. They have those enhancers in them to make it look better. And on regular vehicles, do a great job, absolutely. But not for matte paint. It's going to make it look kind of streaky, kind of blotchy, and again, you don't want to run the risk of getting those irreversible shine spots. No automated car wash. Womp, womp, womp. So I feel like this is a little bit of a hot topic, and I've heard people go either way, actually, when it comes to matte paint. I personally take the stance where I wouldn't risk it. Just because it is a risk, especially with those brushes, is they run the risk of creating more scratches, they're using the soap that, again, isn't necessarily formulated for this matte paint, and I wouldn't want to risk doing anything that would damage the finish too.
couple people have argued, what if it's a touchless automated car wash? And same thing. It doesn't matter if things are touching your car or not. That liquid detergent that they're using for the car wash, not so good. Also, another little dirty thing, a lot of car washes actually recycle their water. So all that water that's been rinsed off from previous cars may be getting recycled back onto yours. So gritty water, nice abrasive paint. You don't want to unabrase the abrase.
I'm actually really glad you said that because I've had a couple of people say to me, oh, well, the car wash that I go to is I can run it and they won't use any detergent or any soap. It's just water because I want to spray off the undercarriage. And like, I get it. It's hard to spray off your undercarriage when you're not underneath the vehicle or have a jet coming up. I get that. But it's still going to be hitting other points of the vehicle. Exactly. So I just probably wouldn't risk it. But at the end of the day, it's your vehicle. It's your paint job. Do what you feel comfortable with. So, but I personally wouldn't do it. No rough cloths. You know, this is obviously the opposite of using those soft microfiber cloths or muffs. You don't want to use anything like paper towel, a terry cloth, things that are more abrasive. And no dish detergent. Okay, so dish detergent, that's not good for
anything.
Anything. It's dish detergent for a reason. It's for your dishes. Yes. It's not intended for any paint surfaces because it's going to dry out the paint. And that's, again, whether it's matte, whether it's glossy. And it's just overly aggressive. Now, I have gone over to my grandmother's house, whom I love. I love my grandmother. She drives a Q7, so she drives a more expensive vehicle. She is in her driveway, and her car is bone dry. Like, it is summer, and she has a paper towel and a bottle of dish soap, and she's just, like, lopping it on that paper towel and wiping down her car. And I'm like, Grandma,
she's so cool.
What are you doing? And I am telling you, I have never seen a car look so bad. I immediately like took it from her, brought it here, got it washed for her because I was like, if you need it washed, just let me know. Like, I'll come and wash it myself or I'll get it washed for you. But wow, I had never seen a car look so bad.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine that looking good at all.
Oh, I laugh about it, but it's pretty funny.
Speaking of car washing your car yourself, who would benefit from matte paint? Or who thrives with a matte paint car? Because it certainly is not me.
It's not us.
It's Patrick Hart.
It's Patrick Hart. He's the owner of this dealership. My hot take is I think that matte paint vehicles are for people who have staff who can take care of their vehicles.
Or they have a detail bay of their own.
Which, honestly, good for you.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
So, and I say that just because matte paint is so much upkeep if you want to keep it looking good. Like I said, it's going to vary where you are for regular hand washing, but I just have other things that I prioritize than the exterior of my vehicle. So I'd rather give my time to those things, you know, like my family or some other, you know, fun things that I have going on in my life than necessarily the exterior.
Interior, but
Yeah, because that's where you spend the time too.
I don't have a family here. No, but seriously, I drove Pat's car while he was gone on vacation. It's this matte EV6 GT. Awesome car, absolutely loved it. Interior is great. I tried not to look outside because we're currently in February and we had a ton of salt on our roads. Everything gets kicked back up on your car, and this vehicle looked disgusting. But when the week started over, I handed the keys to our detail department. I said, "Do you guys mind getting this cleaned for Pat? He's coming back soon."
Looks great.
They were like, "For sure." And that's the only time I would get a matte paint car.
Yeah. And I think that's also why that you see it predominantly on supercars, hypercars, more expensive vehicles, just because, you know, people typically have a little bit more resources that they can dedicate towards it. So that's my stance on matte paint. I'm like, it's for people who've got staff, or if you genuinely love hand washing your vehicle. Like, I know some people are huge enthusiasts and they love to do it. Like, that's how they relax at the end of the day.
That's
more power to you. I'm not like that personally, but more power to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't really have a fun fact for the day. I think our fun fact would have been, it's not matte paint, it's matte finish.
Yeah, I got one.
Okay.
So some people say ceramic coating is a no-no. You can do ceramic coating, a nano.
Yes.
It's a yes. You can do nano ceramic coating on matte paint. There are some that are specially formulated for it again. And again, it's just designed, it kind of seeps into, oh, I wrote it down, what exactly it does. Made for matte finishes. When cured, it's bonded to the paint, so it gives added protection, but without any of those shiny attributes. So
if you want to take it one step further, you can even put it over your PPF.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Wow.
I got I got thousands I can dedicate towards that for sure, for sure.
All right, well, I think that's probably it for today's episode.
Well, would you buy a car with matte paint?
No.
Okay, the answer is the same for me. So
maybe one day if I'm very rich and successful and I suddenly started loving washing cars. Mind you, I do like washing cars. In the summer, I love to keep my car clean. However, I do not have a driveway anymore.
yeah.
I park on the street. I don't know if I'm going to wash my car on the street, so I'll only be going to, you know, the You Do It car wash. And I just don't want to do that every week. It's just, not my thing. And if I had to do it for my matte car, I don't know. Maybe
Girl
if I was unemployed.
Girl save.
But I got stuff to do.
Retired.
What about you?
Yeah, no, I would not.
No?
No. Like I said, I just have other time I'd like to devote my time to, but maybe when I'm retired, I love cars. I think I'll have a little bit more time then, yeah. Or if I, again, have stuff my own one day.
Yeah, like
working on it, but
honestly, I guess even working here, if I did buy a matte car, I knew I could always detail it in our detail bay where we have all the tools, and then of course it's inside the building, so it's not warm or it's not cold, not in the elements or anything. Call me sensitive, but
there you go.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. If you're watching on your streaming platform, we have a YouTube channel called the Kia Hyundai channel. You'll never believe what we film there. And we've actually done a video on on how to apply matte paint products. So if you're curious to learn a little bit more, go and check out that video. And if not,
that's fair, I guess.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you guys so much for watching.
Bye.
Bye.